I'm here today with the utterly fabulous Dawn Kutagich. Her debut novel, The Dead House, was a YALSA Top 10 pick, an Audie Award nominee, and an Earphone Award winner. It has even been optioned for TV by Lime Productions. She is also the author of The Creeper Man and the Trees Crept In, Nida, and The Teeth in the Mist, and Blood on the Wind. Her adult debut novel, The Madness, was preempted in a two-book six-figure deal by Graydon House and was released in August 2024. Her subsequent adult novel, The Thorns, was announced in 2024, another two-book six-figure deal, and was released in 2025. Two novels will follow in 2026, and all that is to say that she's kind of a big deal, and I am very lucky enough to also call her my friend. Welcome.
Thank you so much. You make me sound so impressive.
Well,
I
you
need to
are
have you.
impressive.
You need to be in my house in the corner right over there and say that to me like every day so that I
I'll be
can
your
stop
hype guy.
thinking, yeah, exactly. Now get to work because you're amazing.
Well, tell me what I missed, because I know that sounded like a lot, but there is a lot more to you.
There's so much. I mean, I think there was a lot to everyone, but I think you summarized me beautifully. That I'm I'm all in awe of myself. Who is this person? I'm much less impressive in real life. I'm
I don't
usually a
think that's
quivering
true.
mess.
Well, you have a really, really interesting background. You've been globetrotting, you almost became an astronomer, and that's just a couple of things. So, how does that background kind of inform your writing and the stories that you want to tell?
It's really interesting because when I moved so much as a child, I went to 15 schools and 13 of them before I was 12. So you learn to reinvent yourself all the time. So new
Hmm.
cities, new schools, new versions of you, and you get to try out new personas. Sometimes I wasn't at a school for 6 months before we would leave. And actually, that turned out to be fantastic training for a writer because you have to do that when you write. You inhabit all these different people, all these different scenarios. So, yeah, I learned to step into new worlds pretty quickly and pay attention to people and how they work. I
Hmm.
also learned how to make friends quickly uh, and to read the room, but then also sometimes how to leave abruptly. And it creates this really interesting combination of like curiosity about people, but also distance.
Hmm.
Um, and I didn't realize this until my 30s, like now, that I had to like learn to be a friend because people were sort of things that you tried on like clothes and then you left. And books are a little bit like that. You know, you get to know these characters so intimately, they become a part of you, but then you take them off and you shelve them, you leave them behind. So that was, I didn't realize growing up that it was, yeah, training for me. I ended up studying astrophysics because I was obsessed with the story of the universe. It's like the story of the unknown. That's what drew me in.
Hmm.
But then I won a placement to Cavendish Laboratories when I was 15, maybe 16. I think I was 15 going on 16. And I very quickly realized astrophysics wasn't my calling. It wasn't the data I was interested in, it was the story. And
Hmm.
throughout my life, that's always been the case. I thought I'd go into medicine. And again, it wasn't the actual biology that interested me, it was the story of the people. So it really was the gaps in things that interested in myself in writing. And yeah, I think that is what informs my writing, that I write about the gaps in things. And speculative
Gosh, that was
fiction and
so
horror is all
poetic.
about that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that was beautiful. I mean, it's funny. We have a very similar background. I mean, I didn't move as much as you did, but I moved three different times, kind of
Yeah,
reinvented myself each time. Thought I was going to go into epidemiology and science. Realized
right.
actually I really like writing. I like that a lot more. I like
Yeah,
writing about the stuff, not so much
yeah.
doing the actual research. So
Mhm.
that's very interesting. And you
I
kind of
wonder
already
if
touched on
writing
this.
itself is sort of fluid,
Yeah.
it attracts fluid people.
Yeah, I think so. You have to be flexible and adaptable and like you said, get into other people's heads, which
Yeah.
is really hard at first, but now I can't stop doing it and that is the most fun for me.
Same with me.
Well, you kind of already touched on this, but how did you first get into writing and why horror?
I actually got into writing through reading and I got into reading through fear, which is quite on brand for me, I think. I was just terrified of books as a child. I just couldn't make reading work. I couldn't
Mm.
catch the words. I didn't know about Erlin's, I didn't know about dyslexia, but they were scary. I couldn't get them to stay still. Reading out loud was a complete nightmare. I hated it so much.
Mm.
And I went to schools where they would always make us read out loud, and I just couldn't do it. It was pure terror. And it was very sad for my mum because she's a very bookish person. She's a complete bookworm. She would bring me these books and try to get me to read, and there'd be stories of like girls who moved to a new city or a new country, and or girls who were into horses and things because she was very much like that. And it just never clicked with me. I just wasn't interested. And then one day she brought home this book called Animorphs. And I read the first sentence, and it's something like, "My name is Jake. I can't tell you my surname because then they'll find me. This is all I can tell you." And I was like, "Oh, wow, what is this?" And it was this story about these friends. They're like 11 and they get these superpowers from an alien to turn into animals because they need to fight this very secret alien invasion that's happening in the world, and no one else knows that it's happening. It's very Invasion of the Body Snatchers now that I think about it. But
Oh.
my 12-year-old self was like, "Oh my God, what is this?" I didn't know that books could be this way. I didn't know that stories could have such tension, such terror in them. I knew that films could be this way. I watched horror films from a very young age, like you did, and I was
Mm-hmm.
obsessed. But I didn't realize that books could be a doorway like this. And then that same year, my mum went on a trip to Boston and she brought this beautiful leather-bound book home for me. And I think she intended me to use it as a diary because I've been a diarist since I was about 8, and her encouraging, thank goodness. So I have this tick of writing. And I think I started using this book as a comic strip because I started with stories through comics, through drawings. I would draw in pen, black pen or pencil, and the only color on these cartoons was red when people had been beheaded or whipped or had their hands lopped off of stuff, something like that. So I started using this book for these grotesque cartoons, and then I realized the story was too big for pictures by themselves. So I started writing, and the story just kept going on, and it sustained me from the ages of 12 to 17. I finished that novel at 17, and that was really my entrance into writing. It was fun. Oh,
That
and
sounds
why
awesome.
horror? Why horror? I feel like horror feels like home to me, honestly. I was watching an interview that you did with Gabino Iglesias, and he was saying that horror comes to you. And I think that's so true. It's like you meet it and you go like, "Oh, hi. This is where I'd been going. I didn't have a language for it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's me." And when you ask people about horror, you usually get two reactions. You get, "Oh no, 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 I can't do that. No." Or you get, "Oh yeah." And it's just one of those things, it's inbuilt.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it just comes to you, you recognize it. You also gave an interview, I think it might have been the same interview actually, where you said that you worked in insurance, I think,
I
and then
did.
you would write in emails to yourself and send them. And I was like, "Oh my God, me too." I worked at Skype and I would email myself stories because it looks like you're working. And I was thinking,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, was I slacking off? Was it?" And no, I wasn't, because I got praised for doing a lot of work, but it was survival. I had to
Mm-hmm.
do this. It was compulsion. I would have died in that horrible soulless corporate place if I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't done that. So again, yeah, I think horror finds you. It's just in the blood. In the
Mm-hmm.
blood.
Totally. I think we might be the same person. That's so
Yeah, I
funny.
think so too. Hello, twin. Where have you been? It's like
Well,
one of those things where the soul splits and goes into two people. There's a novel here. I can feel it stirring.
I could, yes, I think so. It's just funny. Whenever I feel like I have kind of a weird background into horror, so whenever I find somebody that's similar to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, we get
Yeah,
it. We get it.
yeah. It's so interesting. And it's also interesting that we both thought we would be in science. I mean, you were in science for a long time. I didn't quite do, I just did a placement, but it's interesting that we both thought we'd be there.
Mhm.
It's the fascination, I suppose.
Yeah, it's like fascination, and I like the stories there. Like you said, I like
Mm,
the story of the disease. I like the story of how these things happen and how they work. But
exactly.
actual research, it was really boring.
Seriously, there was this moment where I was doing the Cavendish laboratory placement where they took me to a very exciting place, actually. They were working in essentially what looked like hobbit holes. It's like it's this green field with these labs that look like hobbit holes. There's grass over the top of them. Anyway, you go in there and they're connected to big telescopes. I think they were using the Coast telescope. And I was talking to a guy who was doing his PhD. He was like 27 or 28. And he was like, yeah, no, I've been working on this for 7 years. And I was like, oh, like asking him questions about it. And while we were in there in this very low green light, all the computers started beeping and going crazy, and all this paper started coming out. This old school like printer paper would like come out and out and out. And everyone was like, oh my God. And like all this activity started happening. And I was like, oh, what's going on? What's going on? And they were like, oh, we've been waiting for this one astrological event for like 30 years and we're studying it for our PhD. And I was like, that's amazing. What do you do now? And he goes, oh, we spend the next 30 years analyzing the data. And I was like, oh, this isn't for me. No, I like, no, I love the story of it, but I couldn't
Mhm.
be there. I have admiration for people who do it, but
Mhm.
wow, yeah, it's the story for me.
Yep, I'm with you on that. Well, what is your writing process like? You and I have talked about this before, but
Mhm.
how do you get started? Do you have any writing rituals, or is your process just kind of all over the place? Because I know mine is.
Mine's all over the place and I try things. The thing about me is that I'm very secretive and I do have little rituals and little superstitions. So I've tried a bunch of things and then I let go of a bunch of things. But here are some things I'm willing to share that have been working for me. So 1 minute, I will just take a drink because it scares me. So for me, first I have to be comfortable.
Mm.
So last year I purchased a writing chair for myself, finally.
Mm.
Oh, it's like sitting in a cloud. It's the best thing that I've ever bought, honestly. So I can sit there for hours and I can just write and write and write. Chronic illness asks a lot from the body. So I don't want to
Mm.
make writing harder than it needs to be, basically.
Mhm.
So if I go somewhere dark, I need my body to feel safe enough to go with me. So
Mhm.
that's the first thing I did last year. The other thing I do is I use scent. So I have a specific roll-on perfume and I put it on before I start writing. And it's a signal to my
Oh.
brain that, okay, we're crossing the threshold now. We're going to lock in. And I feel like it works because scent is quite primal.
Mhm.
So I keep the scent the same. Oh, I had this amazing perfume from this independent creator. She made the most beautiful perfume. I still have the bottle because I love it so much. And it worked beautifully for me. And then she announced that she was having some, I think, spinal issues or brain issues, and she had a surgery coming up and she was going to close temporarily, and she never logged on again. And I'm so worried about her, and I have been. It's been like 3 or 4 years, maybe longer, but I still pull that perfume out and I untwist the knob and I smell it. It's like coffee and earthy, and it's gorgeous. So I've been looking for a scent to mimic it, and I found one that's pretty close. So I'll use that before writing, and it affects me. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it bypasses intellect. I'm not sure. And they say scent is linked to memory. So if you have
Mhm.
a scent for a certain book, maybe that's what it is. And then earlier in my career, one thing I did that I don't really do anymore because I don't need to is I used to keep diaries as my characters for like quite lengthy
Hmm.
periods of times. And it was a way for me to get inside their head. And I would do that for maybe 5 months before I started writing the novel. It was my way of summoning them. I don't really need that anymore. I feel like my characters come to me a lot quicker now, but in the early days I did that. So it could be interesting and useful if somebody wants to try that. Um, and then last year, one thing I started doing is I started driving into the mountains around sunset. I would grab a Starbucks, I know, and or I would just bring a thermos of hot drink. It just needs to be a hot drink. And I would sit in the mountains, I would watch the sun go down. And then as everything grew dark around me, I would put my hoodie on and like wrap myself in blankets and I would just write on my phone, not even with a note, like with a pen. Sometimes, so I have a chronic illness that's exhaustion based, MECFS, and sometimes I can't hold a pen, but I can usually type. So I would like
Mm.
wrap myself up and you feel like you're in this abyss because you've got the outlines of the mountains and this strikingly blue sky, and then everything just fades into this abyss, and the cars stop coming. And it's quite terrifying, actually. I'm terrified of the dark, but you're in this safe capsule and you've got your little phone, it's the only light, and you're just in the zone drafting. And I did that for parts of The Seventh Sister and almost all of The Wellness Retreat, the two books I have coming out this year. So if you read it, picture me there in the mountains drafting on my phone.
That sounds awesome.
I highly recommend it. Yeah,
Oh my gosh, I need to try that perfume thing because sometimes I light a candle for kind of the same reason, like just a little
I do
ritual
too.
and the scent,
Yeah,
and that helps. But I really like the perfume
yeah.
idea.
There is something about the candle as well, because I do that too. It's there's something about firelight that's so
Hmm.
soothing. I don't know what it is. You know, you can mimic it with low lamps and fake candles. It just doesn't have the same effect as
Hmm.
writing by a little fire.
Hmm.
Again, maybe it's this primordial ancient core we have, which I think scent is linked to. So, actually, a
Hmm.
scented candle, I might have to try that. I don't think I've done it with a scented candle before.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I did it for when I wrote The Rotting Room since it's super gothic. I
Oh,
started
yeah.
writing at like 4:30 in the morning when it was still dark, lit my candle like
Yes.
very dim lights. I listened to
Yeah.
like Gregorian monk chanting to like
I
get
love
in
that.
the mood. And that was just for that book. Now my schedule has like changed around, so it's harder for me to write in the morning. I write like
Yeah,
mid-morning because I'm like if I'm tired, I'm not gonna write. There's no
me too.
creativity. If my
Yeah,
like
same.
human battery is low, like it's just not happening.
Sleep is so underrated for creativity.
Hmm.
You know, I a lot of times people are trying to write when they're chronically underslept, and for me personally, I can't do it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
I did the same thing with Teeth in the Mist. It's this story about these people isolated on a Welsh mountain and they're cut off completely. And it was set in 1851, one of the timelines. It was a three timeline book. And one of the timelines is that. And I remember thinking, okay, I need to A, be isolated and B, feel no electricity. So I turn the electricity off in the house and I sit in my lounge. Again, I'm so nyctophobic. I'm so scared of the dark because I always think a demon's going to get me or some intruder or something. My
Mm.
imagination just, my brain tortures me, honestly. But I would sit there and I had this candle lit and this candle cover that casts all these shapes on the wall. And I would just sit there and be like, okay, what am I feeling? Why am I afraid? How would I describe being this afraid? What do I think is going to happen? And like it really got me into that element. I also went camping in my garden at night in a storm because one of my characters did, and I was like, I need to know what this feels like, and then it flooded.
Oh,
Oh, there's all the stupid shit we do for writing. I mean, it's fun. It makes it so
mm.
fun.
That's awesome though. I'm trying to think if I have done anything like that. I mean, I've written about some of my own experiences, but there's some things I'm just like not gonna try that out. But I have some books
Oh
coming.
yeah.
Yeah, I have some books coming up. You and I have talked about where I'm going to try to live some of those experiences.
Oh
Like
man, I so want to hear how everything goes.
it's fun. That's like the most fun part
Yeah.
is like the experiential research.
It is so interesting. I mean, with your books, I would be afraid if you wanted to do some of the things in there. I
Yeah.
mean, I'd be intrigued and I'd be curious from a distance.
Yeah, I think my family would be like, please don't. Just don't.
Yeah. So, or have you already and you just haven't told anybody?
Well, there is always that possibility. You never
That's
know.
true. We are morbid little creatures.
Very much so. And speaking of that, so I was lucky enough to read an arc of your next book. It was fantastic. Can you give us a quick elevator pitch of The Seventh Sister? By the time this episode airs, it's going to be coming out very, very soon, if it's not already out. And I loved it, so tell everybody about it so they can love it too.
So it's called The Seventh Sister. It's an adult folk tale fable. It's about seven sisters who, after the death of their parents, are sent to live with their grandmother on a remote island called Beltane. And as children, they build a private faith around a forgotten primordial forest god. And then 25 years later, the surviving sisters are summoned back to the island to confront what really happens when, you leave a forest god unworshipped and what really happened to them when they were children. So, really, it's a sisterhood story, but it's mostly about memory. It's about the ways fairy tales crack open through the lens of adulthood.
Gosh, your descriptions are awesome. Even just you talking about the book is so beautiful. Your writing
Thank
style,
you.
it's like poetic, it's lyrical, but it's also terrifying, which is the
Yeah.
best combination ever because I can read it and be like, that was a beautiful sentence, but also I'm scared now. That's what I want.
I'm so pleased. That's all I want in life. Beautiful horror.
Yes, beautiful horror, definitely. But also, awful and horrifying and gross at
Yeah.
times. There were scenes in that where I was
Yeah.
like, oh, but also,
It's
yes.
it's really interesting too because it comes back to the horror element. I was one of the first horror titles that my publisher acquired for this
Hmm.
imprint, or at least that's what they told me. And there was this one scene, I'm not going to talk about which scene, but I'm sure you will know because you've read. And they kept asking me to take it out.
Mm.
And I kept having to like push back on this. And I really had to go and explain like what horror is to my
Hmm.
editor. And I had to cite examples of other horror books, award-winning horror books. And I had to talk about, the fact that horror is meant to be confronting.
Hmm.
Um, and they were like, oh, yeah, no, you're right, keep it. But if you don't get it, you don't get it. Do you know what I mean? It's not to
Yeah.
say that there's like this exclusive thing about horror, but horror is this visceral thing that
Mm.
again comes to you and you recognize it, like it speaks to a certain kind of person.
Hmm.
So yeah.
That's cool that you went to bat for your book, though, and that you won. That's great.
Yeah, I know. And I because I feel like Seven Sister is not that dark. I feel that way about
Mhm.
all my books. The Madness was billed as horror. That one was slightly different because it was an IP book, like it was a collaborative process with a
Mhm.
packaging company, and I had a really good time, but it was not dark. Seven Sister, I oh man, that book was beautiful. It was one of those rare instances where it just came out of me in a fever. I understood it so well, but I still don't think it's that dark,
It's all
even
relative, right?
though,
If somebody doesn't
yeah,
read a lot of horror, they're like, oh my gosh. But if somebody reads like splatterpunk or
yeah,
extreme, they're like, that wasn't so
yeah.
bad.
Like Room, that one stuck with me for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. It's all a spectrum. There's so many different types of horror.
Yeah. So I think maybe because you don't really think, at least I don't think about what I'm doing in I'm very instinct driven and I only think about how I think and my process when I'm asked these questions.
Hmm.
And I think I would probably say that I'm interested in the intersection between innocence and um horror, innocence and terror,
Mm.
that like weird gap, the thing with children being creepy, that is so my cup of tea. Um, and also memory, like what you remember as this rose-tinted version of your childhood versus the lens you see it through as a grown-up. I love that. It's like breaking open this little egg to reveal horrors. Oh, it's so cool.
I am so excited for other people to read this book. It's it's so I've never read anything like it, which is always fun for me
Oh,
to find.
I'm
And
so
yeah, I'm
glad.
just really excited. And I love the vibes. Like I've seen some of the like mood board type things you've done for it, and I'm
Mm.
like, yes, we need more of this.
Oh, please, please, more books like this. I love the creepy fairy tale-esque type
Hmm.
horror.
Totally.
Yeah.
And well, also you have written many YA, young adult horror novels as well. Have you found any challenges between writing the two or switching between them?
Yeah, it's so funny because the feedback I kept getting from my editors was this is good, but you don't have to be so tight. So it was a craft thing initially for me.
Mm.
They were like, you can breathe, you can take a minute, you can ponder and reflect. You don't have to ratchet up everything all the time because YA is so tight. Um,
Mm.
YA tends to be very, very tight in the sense that the narrative momentum is very strong. So the
Mm.
focus is very sharp, the story keeps moving forward and upwards constantly. Whereas adult fiction is kind of allowed to breathe, it's allowed to contemplate, they can pause, reflect, circle their thoughts. And the prose itself can linger. So, from a craft
Mm.
perspective, but obviously there's an emotional shift as well. So YA is obviously about becoming. It's your first love, it's your first betrayals, your first encounter with fear. It's the questions of who you might be, who you might become. Whereas my adult work is more focused on the aftermath, like what those first choices turned into. What are the consequences of those choices? how you live now with the person you've become and the choices you've made. So even though I always write character driven stories, adult horror gives me more room to contemplate those stories, to like
Hmm.
sit inside different consequences that characters make.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, and in terms of switching between the two, I haven't gone back to YA yet. I am playing with something, and I'm not even sure it's YA at this point because again, there is this tightening of momentum that you have to go back
Hmm.
to. And I really like the space to breathe. And I
Hmm.
like the unanswered questions. The other thing about YA, not so much with my YA, but YA is always neatly wrapped up.
Hmm.
I don't tend to do that. I tend to be quite ambiguous, but adult spaces have more tolerance for an ambiguous ending and an ambiguous story. You know,
I get that. I love ambiguity as well. I find
me as well.
myself doing that a lot. It interests
Yeah.
me because I like to see how different people can interpret things. I don't want to spell
Yeah.
everything out because I think
Yes.
it can mean different things to different readers, which I think makes a book more
Mhm.
interesting than just this is the only message you're allowed to take away from this.
And also, I mean, the thing about the story is the questions. That's what intrigues me about the story. So if I wrap everything up neatly, which I sometimes do, it takes away the intrigue because it's like, oh, I've got the answer. Whereas if you don't do that, it just there's a lingering that happens and you
Mhm.
just keep thinking about it. You keep wondering about it. And I love that feeling. I don't want it to stop.
Mhm. I totally agree with you. I was going to use that same word, lingering. You think about
Mhm.
it for a really long time.
I
Yeah.
love that.
I
The
yes.
niggling thought. I always say this, like I love a niggling thought. I'm plagued by them. They're not always pleasant, but they're
Mhm.
company.
I get that. I do. I too have those obsessive, repetitive thoughts, and I'm like, please
Mhm.
just go away. And then I end up writing a book. So it all works out.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you kind of a bigger question. And we've kind of talked about this a little bit. But
Yeah.
why do you think horror as a genre, why does it matter? Why are we drawn to it? What is its purpose? What do you think horror is and what does it mean to people?
I mean, I think we know we love horror because it's ancient. I think it's one of the oldest languages we have. We know that it predates comfort. We know that some of the earliest stories we told were horrors. There were warnings, rituals, they were explanations for the unexplainable, still is to this day. So it's in our bones, it's in our history, it's in our DNA. I think it's always how humans have metabolized things like fear and grief. Oh,
Mm.
it's so funny. It's like the horror is the liver of the literary body, and it's necessary. You need the liver to process all your toxins. That's how I view it, which is
That is the
hilarious because
coolest
I had,
answer I have ever heard. That
thank
is
you. I
so
just thought
cool.
it was so funny because I had a liver transplant. So yeah, the liver is important to me, and therefore horror is the liver.
I think
But
that's
for
awesome.
me personally, for me, horror is I don't feel alone when I'm reading horror and when I talk to people about horror because I'm one of those kids that was always called weird, that was always looked at a bit oddly. I never really fit in anywhere, and horror celebrates that, and
Hmm.
horror, attracts people like that. So it's brought me community in a way that I never had before. So I don't
Hmm.
feel so alone. I also feel like horror just in general attracts people that live close to shadow things. So, the morbid types, the types like me who I just looked at a bit sideways by by people who don't understand. And again, it's not to say that it's an exclusive club. Horror is for everyone, but there is like if you're into horror and you talk to people about it, like I'll go to medical appointments and the nurse will be like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, I write." And the inevitable question is, "Oh, what do you write?" And I say horror. And like 90% of the time they're like, "Ooh, why do you do that?" Like, are you okay? But then the 10% of the time where you get someone who's like, "Oh my gosh, me too. Have you read this?" And oh, like there's this connection. You're with your people. So for me,
Hmm.
that's what horror is. Also, just intrigue. I mean, I'm drawn to, like I said, the gaps in places, the gaps in reality, and horror explores that really well. Sci-fi does too, but and horror sci-fi is a brilliant collaboration. But yeah, the secret histories, the sense that
Hmm.
reality is thinner, that there's something on the other side of the veil. It's just horror is pure intrigue. That's why for me. It's just
I
honest.
love that. No, I love that
Yeah.
so much. And I like you said, I love being part of a community where people say,
Yeah.
I love your weird. Make it even more weird.
Yeah.
Let's see what you got. I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
celebrate the weird.
I
And
find the same with people who listen to metal music. Like you either get metal music or you just don't. I'm a metalhead. I love metal. I love other things too, but I really love metal and you get the same reaction as you do with horror. Like, oh, you listen to that? Like that noise?
my husband is also a metalhead, and when he first told me
Yeah.
that, like I don't really get it like he does, but when he finds
Yeah.
somebody and they're like, "Oh my gosh, have you heard of this band or this band or this band?" It's
Yeah.
like that with horror books or
Yeah.
I mean there are so many things out there for us to consume, different types of
Mhm.
things, books, music, movies, that
Absolutely.
when you find somebody who has a similar taste to you, it's
Yeah.
it's not that easy sometimes.
It's true. And I also got into metal through my husband. We met when I was 18 and I like heard it for the first time and it just spoke to something in me. And yeah, it's the same reaction. It's the same thing.
Mm.
So yeah, I find it fascinating too. There are, people who read a lot of romance, and I've recently started reading romance I never did before, and I'm really loving it. I'm enjoying it. Um, but yeah, really there's something honest about horror, but there's something raw about horror. There are no bells and whistles, generally speaking. Yeah, it's just intriguing.
I agree. I like seeing the darkness. I like playing with the darkness. And then
Yeah,
since it's a book, you can just close it and go do something
yeah,
that makes you happy. Or
yeah.
keep reading horror if that makes you happy.
Agreed.
Well, what do you wish we saw more of in the horror book world?
So actually, we touched on this. I want less certainty. I want more horror that's ambiguous. I think we're going through a cultural shift at the moment, or we're in a cultural place where we like moral lessons in horror and we like activism in horror, but we like a neat ending. Like we
Mhm.
like everything to be wrapped up. And a lot of times, also, horror is concluded with healing or explanation. And I just want a bit more ambiguity. I want a bit more ending with curiosity and questions and things that aren't tidily fixed. I like the messiness of an open ending. Not necessarily open, you can tie some things out, but I just want to have this sense that there's something not quite answered or something not quite right.
Mhm.
I want books that let me sit with the strange of it all. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah.
And I mean, selfishly, I'll always ask for more folk horror and more supernatural horror, more gothic horror, more old gods, more haunted places, more cursed soil, ancient gods, that kind of thing.
I'm totally with you on that. More of that, everybody.
Yeah. More
Well,
crossing of boundaries and thresholds. I mean,
yeah.
honestly, your writing is so good for this.
Oh,
I
thank
think
you.
I told you when I first started reading your writing that I just felt like I had seen someone with the same brain as me. Because it was just, you weren't afraid to go these places. You weren't afraid to explore these dark places.
Very dark.
And
Yes.
I want more of that. I want deeper. I want darker. Give it to me.
Yeah, sometimes I write something and I'm like, is that too dark? And I'm like, nope, it's
Me
good. Let's do
too.
it.
I even in YA, I have a critique partner, and she was reading a scene that I wrote in Blood on the Wind, which is sequel to Teeth in the Mist. And I'll talk about it because the book's been out for ages. But there's a scene where this girl, she's recently become a vampire or a version of a vampire, and the sun is about to rise, and she hasn't got anywhere to go. She's been riding on a horse, and she's ridden it to death because it had a heart attack because she's ridden it so hard.
Mhm.
So she cuts open its belly, scoops out its viscera, and climbs inside the carcass just until the sun has set. And I remember thinking, like, have I gone too dark? And then my critique partner was like, I think you have, but then I left it in there anyway. So
I think that's awesome. But again, that's me.
yeah, but like, what would you do? Seriously. I mean, I suppose she could have dug a hole in the ground or whatever, but
I think that's as
the
good of
horse was
answer as
there.
any. Yeah, the
Yeah,
horse is
like
there.
she ate the horse first.
Yeah, there you go. Nothing went to waste.
I love animals. Please don't come for me.
I love animals too, but I have had people have issue with some of my books. I'm not going to say which one, and I'm like, It happens.
I don't, yeah, I don't
Sometimes
mind
these things
saying,
happen.
like, I had to make a change with the thorns because there's a snake that appears in that book. I had to change it. It was a dog initially, and I had to change it because, and I understand why. There's a whole, you know, there are people who are very, very sensitive to this, and I understand. I'm a sort of person who believes that trigger warnings are useful and have a place. But obviously, horror is for confronting these things, and if you seek it
Mm,
out, then this is what you're there for. But there's a whole website about like, does the dog die in this? And my editors were a bit worried that it would put readers off just without even. I think that that's one of the things. Like, if you know that a dog dies in a book, there are readers who won't touch it at all, no matter what
mm,
the story is. So yeah, it's one of those things. I guess you draw the line where you draw the line. And if you're traditionally published, there are things that you aren't going to be able to fight back on. They're just going to have to
true.
change. It's the nature of the business. So, and that's also cool why self-publishing is so cool because you don't get these, restraints and limits. I do think sometimes they make the book better, a lot of the time actually, but sometimes in horror, there's space for pushing boundaries. That's what horror is for.
Totally. I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you a very difficult question. What is your favorite horror book and why? And I know for me, it really just
Oh,
depends on when somebody asks me this because you, like me, we read a lot of books, so there are constantly things. It could be the last
yeah.
best book you read. It doesn't have to be your all-time favorite if that's too hard.
Honestly, I'm still searching for the novel or the horror novel I can point to and say like this is the
Mm.
one. I found it in film. I found my favorite horror film, and I say it all the time. And I didn't realize it was my favorite until people kept asking me for recommendations, and I kept giving this one. It's A Dark Song, by the way. It's called A Dark Song. It's a British horror about. I'll just plug it quickly because it's so
Yeah,
good.
I haven't even heard of it, so tell me.
It's a two-person cast, and it's about this woman whose son was murdered by a group of youths who were trying to do like a satanic ritual, and so she has found herself a shaman who's going to guide her through an Abramelin ritual, which is a real occult ritual that exists in order to contact her guardian angel. Because when you do, you can ask for one favor. But to do that, you have to unlock yourself from the world, summon various levels of demons, and trap them in this drawn sort of diagram. And with each gate and with each demon, you get closer to your guardian angel. And it's fucking terrifying. Excuse my language, but
Hey,
the whole premise of this film makes my skin crawl, and I'm so addicted to it. I can't get enough of it. So that's the film.
that
In
sounds
terms of
really cool.
books, it's so good. I hope you watch it. The cast is brilliant. Like I said, it's a two-person cast. I think there's one other woman who appears briefly, but yeah, it's a two-person cast. It's just two
Wow.
people in a house, and it's it's very earthy. It's very raw. The language is very minimal. The dialogue is minimal. And these are people who are not good to each other. These are two broken people doing horrible things, a horrible ritual in a beautiful place. It's
Cool.
but in terms of books, I do have a few that come to mind when I think, okay, these are ones that I have stuck with me. So I'll tell you
Mm.
those.
Yes.
First, House of Leaves, Mark
Mhm.
Danielewski, because of its audacity and because of how it makes reading itself feel unsafe. Very,
Mm.
very cool. If you can stick with it, it kind of changes your brain chemistry. I I've told this story before, but I was told that when you start reading this book, there will come a time where you regret picking it up. And I had that moment. I was sitting in bed facing this long, dark corridor, and I just looked up from the book and I thought, oh shit, because it changes your brain forever and there's no going back. So that's the first one. Second one is In the House in the Dark of the Woods by Laird Hunt. That one because it's feral, it's folklorish, it doesn't explain itself, which I love. Let Me In by Camilla Bruce. It's bleak but tender. And I love the gothic framing it uses, which is the memoir to reveal something.
Mhm.
Gone to See the Riverman by Christopher Triana has really lingered with me. It doesn't pull any punches. It goes somewhere truly uncomfortable.
Mhm.
I will say like if you, I guess, trigger warning for the representation of disabled people, if that
Mm.
affects you, like just be aware of it. Another one that comes to mind is Bone China by Laura Purcell. Just pure, gorgeous, gothic intimacy. And there's this book that I'm currently partway through, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be top of the pile. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called The Rotting Room.
Ah,
And I'm pretty sure it's going to end up in my list because it is just exquisite. It's
thank
so cool.
you.
I'm taking my time with it because have you ever read a book where you're like, I know this is going to sound so weird given what the book's about, but where you want to be there, you want to like
Yeah,
live inside the atmosphere, but
I
you
sure
also
do.
like, you're like, man, I like this makes me want to read. It makes me want to write. It just inspires me so much, which is so funny given what it's about.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So if any of those appeal, I highly recommend.
Oh, well, thank you so much. You're the only
You're
one I've ever
welcome.
talked to who wants to live in the rotting room. More power to you.
You know, honestly, I started watching, I don't know if you ever saw the film Immaculate. I had a
Yes.
similar feeling where the very beginning of the film, where she's arriving at the convent and she's being shown around, I had the same feeling there where it's like I just want to be there and I want to live in that space for a little bit because it was so intimate and it I wish that I had the language to explain what the rotting room, especially the beginning of it, and the beginning of Immaculate gave me in terms of the feeling. I need
Mm.
to analyze what is actually happening in me, but it's very affecting and very, very effective.
Yay. I've had that feeling reading and watching stuff too, so I get what you're
Yeah,
talking about, and I don't know how to describe it either, just being like, I just want to exist
yeah.
in that space and examine it for a while and see how that makes me feel.
That's it. That is exactly right. I want to examine it. I want to
Mhm.
examine it, spend time in it, and I want to spend time with the people in it and the
Mhm.
spaces of it because it's so intimate. Yeah, very well said.
Awesome. Wow. Okay. Well, we have talked about the Seventh Sister. You mentioned the wellness retreat. So, can
Mhm.
you talk a little bit about that and kind of what's next on the horizon for you? When does the Seventh Sister publish? When does the wellness retreat publish? That sort of thing.
So the Seventh Sister, again, folk horror, very earthy, soily, set on an island, ironically, because so is the Wellness Retreat. It's the year of islands. So Seventh Sister is out in April. And as far as I'm aware, the Wellness Retreat is out in September. I thought it was November, but apparently it's September. That's another thing. They don't often tell you things like this. So Seventh Sister, yeah, very soily, ancient forest gods, forgotten island. And the Wellness Retreat is more a suspense novel. It's more a psychological thriller-ish. And it's set in a Scottish island. And it's a very unusual spa that this character goes
Ooh,
to, doing very strange things there. But again,
cool.
what I will say is that both books are like, I think it's the theme for me for 2026. It's the meshing of ancient folklore and modern stories. It's
Mhm.
like the clashing of those two up against each other.
Well, I am super excited for that.
Thank
Like I said, I
you.
already read The Seventh Sister, which was awesome, but I'm very
Yeah.
excited for this one too because I love anything like wellness themed,
Me
anything
too.
like beauty industry gone awry. There
Yeah,
have been many books that have examined that, and I always find them so interesting.
me too. I really loved Rouge by Mona Awad. That was such a great story.
Mhm.
Mine is definitely more commercial, more suspense, less literary. This is also another collaborative process, another collaborative novel. So it's like the sister of the madness.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's interesting. It like it follows a chronic illness, a woman with chronic illness, as she makes this journey to this spa to find her sister who works there, who hasn't been heard from. And she checks in as a guest secretly, like she doesn't reveal her identity. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's a really weird exploration of wellness in relation to people who are unwell and the narrative there and how weird it can get. Yeah, so
Mhm.
wellness gone wrong.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, well, last question for you is do you have any advice for aspiring authors who would love to have a career like yours?
It's so funny because I don't love prescriptive advice in general because when I started writing, so much of the advice that was coming my way really didn't apply to me or sometimes actively worked against me. So what I would say is if I could give myself advice now, looking back, because I think, careers aren't built from templates, but what I would say is that if you're trust yourself,
Mm-hmm.
ask for permission. Sorry, yeah, don't do it and ask for forgiveness later is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, trust yourself. Don't let people who don't understand what you're doing try to take the darkness and the sharp edges out of what you're doing because the people who it's for will recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
Go dark because that's where your voice lives, it's where you're authentically yourself. So don't cater to people or voices that aren't you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, trust what you're doing. You do know what you're doing. And
Mm-hmm.
also, contrary to what people say, do follow your fear. People always say, "Don't follow your fear, follow your curiosity." And I'd say, yes, follow your curiosity, but also follow your fear,
Mm-hmm.
because in my experience, fear can be a warning sign, but it can also be a compass. So it can lead you way, especially in horror, right? It's one of
Mm-hmm.
the questions I asked myself when I was drafting my first book. I was like, oh, this doesn't feel like horror. Okay. And my husband said to me, well, what scares you? And I really had to think about that. So I did just follow my fear. So those are the three things that I would say.
That's great advice. I mean, yeah, when you write horror, I feel like you have to follow your fear. All
Oh,
of my
yeah.
books there's something in there that scares me. I have to find it
Yes,
scary.
absolutely.
It's a
And I
requirement.
mean, that's easy for me because I'm afraid of everything. So,
As you can probably guess from reading my stuff, I am very afraid of germs and disease and being trapped.
yeah. And honestly, since transplant, I've become so afraid of germs and the casual way that people don't think about germs.
Hmm.
Because obviously I'm hugely immune suppressed, and if someone is ill, they're like they come to work or they come to a shared space and they'll be better in a week, and I will be there 6 weeks later dying.
Ugh. Yeah,
So
no.
yeah, same with germs. But yeah, I'm actually curious, what other things are you afraid of that you put into your books? I'm sorry, I'm not
Mhm.
interviewing you, but
No,
I
that's
am
okay.
genuinely curious.
I'm very interested in like liminal spaces where it goes on
Mm.
forever and you feel like you can't get out of it. So that could be like
Yes.
another dimension, that could be an abandoned place, that could be like I wrote one story which I'm just going to spoil. It was for an anthology where this guy was working in a pirate themed bar that had this huge animatronic pirate, and he's there after closing one night and he ends up accidentally like switching bodies with the pirate and being trapped inside the animatronic, which
I
I
love
find
that.
terrifying. Like you're trapped somewhere and you can't get out. You never know if
Yes.
you're going to get out, but you're conscious. So you just have to
Yeah,
like go crazy in that space. That terrifies me.
that is also something I'm fascinated with. Somebody in my family has DID, which is like multiple personality disorder. They don't call it that anymore. They call it dissociative identity disorder, but they've described being co-conscious where they are behind the conscious that's in front of them and they have no control and they're seeing things happening and they're just not capable of doing anything. That is highly terrifying for me.
Mm-hmm.
I explore it a
Yes.
little bit in my debut novel, but yeah, agreed. And the
Mm.
liminal space thing as well.
Mm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta
So
read
many
some of
different
your
places.
short stories.
Oh, thank you. There's so many different places to go. I've been writing a lot of short stories lately just for different anthologies. And it's fun
Yeah,
because I have a notebook full of ideas, but not all of them are
yeah,
worthy of like a novel, but I can
same.
explore them in these short stories. And that's just been really, really
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, I'm in a short story mode as well. I've got to deliver one in March, and I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I'm very curious. It's for an anthology called These Ghastly Deaths, and I'm
Ooh,
sure you can imagine. So yeah,
cool.
I'm very thalassophobic, so perfection.
Me too. I have
Yeah.
submechanophobia. Do you know what
Oh,
that is?
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Hmm.
But the weird thing is I love looking at pictures like our submechanophobia on Reddit. And
Me
for people
too.
who don't know, that's the fear of man-made objects underwater.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in the water with anything like that. I just don't.
No, but you can't help but looking. I do the same with
Hmm.
thalassophobia Reddit and also trypophobia. I'm
Ooh.
trypophobic, and I sometimes I just can't help myself. What is that? There must be some psychological explanation for the self-torture of this.
It might be like if you can look at it more, you can understand it, and then it's less
Yeah,
scary because you can at least see it. It's not so unknown.
I
At least
think
that's what
so. I also suspect that it's something akin to roller coasters where you just enjoy the
I.
sensation of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say that exposure therapy unfortunately does work. I used to be completely needle phobic, and now I'm like, right, this vein, give it to me, I'll do it myself. I could probably pierce myself at this point. Yeah. But I'm
Oh,
not going into the deep ocean, like
yeah,
screw that.
no. No, thank you. If it's something I don't have to do, then I'm gonna go ahead and not do that.
I know. I don't want to go down and see the Titanic. Thank you. No.
Nope, nope,
No.
nope. Hard pass. Well, thank you so much. Can you just tell people where they can find you and keep up with you and your work?
Yes, so I'm mostly on Instagram. I'm also on TikTok, but I don't do TikTok very well because I don't want to be seen. I want to be a hermit in the mountains. Yeah, mostly I'm on TikTok. You can find me on my website. Sorry, Instagram. You can find me on my website. I do a monthly newsletter, and I highly recommend you subscribe. And
Yes,
thank you for having me.
of course. This was awesome. Thank you so much.
It was fun.